welcome back. Today we're here to talk about 1983 Superman 3. And right off the bat, when we start jumping into like the plot and storyline of this movie, it's easily the worst that we've seen thus far. And we've watched Batman the movie, and it was worse than Batman the movie.
We start off in a rough place here.
Yeah.
It can only go up from here, though, to be fair. Superman the movie's plot was so...
Superman 3.
Superman 3, the movie. Its plot was so all over the place that it was so confusing. The first half of the movie, I didn't know what the plot was.
Yeah, no, the first hour, and we did clock it in at an hour, and up to that point, like I had written in my notes, what is this about? Because there's no like plot line that was distinguishable between what was happening. It felt like it was just, kind of like what the first one was, with Superman just going around and just saving people in random places, but there was no like drive for what was supposed to be happening.
Yeah. The way I see it, this movie can be broken down into about 5 plots, the 5 plots being each of the villains. So we start off with Gus. I actually kind of liked Gus as a villain. If he had been the only villain, I probably would have been happy. You could understand what his motivation was. Gus was a bum. He was living on the streets. He was living on taxes. And then he got cut off, so he needed to find another way to make money. So he started to steal. You understand that motivation. It doesn't mean that he's a good person, but it does mean he's a good character. Now, unfortunately, Gus never gets to face off with Superman. Not even once. There was a brief moment when he and Superman are in the same room, but at that point, Superman isn't really sure what his intentions are, and then by the end, all is forgiven.
Yeah.
So Gus as a character, like his part of the story, didn't really add much.
No, so his thing was he was a computer genius, like by accident even. He didn't even know he was a computer genius until he got a computer job. And what he'd do is he would hack money, or he hacked the system of his employer to steal money from them. The employer found out, and then he started kind of blackmailing Gus to do his dirty work using computer hacking. And that was kind of what the first half was about. Superman also, you have the Clark Kent going to the high school reunion and meeting Lana Lang, and there's kind of like a little love thing going on there. But that's really it, and there's no like real clear direction of what's going to happen because he just got a bunch of computer hackers and high school reunion. And like that's the first half of the movie. You have no idea what's happening until the second half when they make like a synthetic kryptonite, which Gus made because the bad guy wants to kill Superman, so he can't interfere with his business. But then the kryptonite doesn't like kill Superman; it just makes him kind of a jerk, and that's the second half. The second half is about Superman being a jerk, essentially. Blowing out towards the Olympics, causing oil spills. What else did he even do?
He fixed the Tower of Pisa. All right, that's a little point that I want to make really quickly
I forgot about
here.
that.
So first of all, we're now in the third villain. So the second villain is Webster. He's the boss. He's the boss of Gus. And then the third villain is Superman himself. When he gets the synthetic kryptonite, which in the comics is the red kryptonite, but in this one it's still green. I don't know why. And he just becomes a jerk. But what I really like is at some point he straightens out the Tower of Pisa. And what I think is really funny about that is because it had been established that Superman was now selfish. He only did things for himself, which means his entire life up till that point, it had been bothering him that the Leaning Tower of Pisa was leaning. And he went and fixed it. And then later, as just a side note, when he's no longer his selfish self, he goes back and makes it lean again because he's like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this just for me. The people want to see it lean. And I think that that's the funniest thing that they've ever done in this franchise.
It was so random. I thought when we were watching it, I was like, what? Why?
Yeah.
I was so confused. But anyway, he... Yeah, Superman 3, everybody.
Yeah.
So that first, so the second half where the storyline was more focused on Superman being corrupted, still wasn't enjoyable to watch.
Yeah.
Like it just, no one wants to see pure good Superman be a jerk.
Right. If you do want to see a jerk Superman, there's 3 sources you can go through. There's Hancock with Will Smith. That's my favorite. The second one is the TV show The Boys. And then the third one is the book series. Steelheart is the first one, where it's jerk Superman. All of those are superheroes gone bad or selfish or whatever it may be. And all of them are more entertaining than this.
Yeah, it just wasn't pleasant to watch. And the other thing I want to talk about with the storyline is more the writing, I guess, but the tones of this movie were all over the stinking place. In the beginning, the first hour was basically just a comedy. Because you had Superman saving people, and you had Gus, who's played by Richard Pryor, who actually was a comedian. And that explains a lot of the comedy that was in the first half. But then when Superman gets corrupted by the synthetic kryptonite, the whole tone just shifts to kind of this more dark, or it tries to be dark. I don't know if it really felt that dark, but it tries to be more dark and gritty. And then during the last half, when he comes back too, the last like 10 minutes of it, it becomes a sci-fi with him against a computer. Yeah. And that didn't feel like it fit at all into what the movie or the franchise, really, to be honest with you. The whole thing felt really weird and out of place. And then for the last like 5 minutes afterwards, it goes back to comedy for him like fixing the Tower of Pisa and things like that. So it was all over the place, and I just I couldn't get behind it. I didn't like what was happening. I gave it a 1 out of 5. It was like, this is terrible.
Yeah, I gave it a 1 out of 5 as well for the one of the 5 villains that I enjoyed watching, who was Gus. Right. The other 2 villains we haven't talked about are the computer and then the woman, Webster's sister, who becomes a computer. It's just both really quick, 5 minutes each, pretty much. But yeah, 1 out of 5, not a very good story.
How do you like it?
I think it's typical of people like you, Webster. Instead of helping others, all the 4 of you want to do is help yourselves.
4 of you? You mean us? 4? Wait. Oh, hey, man.
That's only his last name. He likes to be called Superman.
Oh, see, I'm not with them, Superman.
You could have fooled me, mister.
Moving on then to the action of the movie, and there was one scene that I really enjoyed, although I think it went a little too long, and that was the scene where you get Clark Kent versus bad Superman. That was like, the action in that sequence was interesting to me. Not because, I guess not really just the action itself that was interesting, but just the psychological concept of, you have the good side of Superman that refuses to stay down and be like defeated. Because he really didn't fight a lot until the end when he strangles bad Superman. He kind of just got his like trash kicked. Like he got kicked into a disposal, he got thrown around, punched and kicked, knocked out. But every time that happened, he got back up because he wouldn't get silenced. And I thought that was interesting, psychologically speaking. And the action in that junkyard scene was good, actually quite good, considering they were just the same people fighting each other. And that was like probably one of the first times it's happened in movie because of how old the movie is. But I enjoyed that aspect of it. I did not enjoy the computer fight at the end.
No, that was terrible.
Yeah.
That was terrible, and it made no sense, but that's not really. Action, just in general, I thought about half of it was good, half of it was bad. I'm also counting things that are like not necessarily fighting, but just like action. Like as an example, there was a scene where they were bowling.
Here you go, Ricky. And you give it your best shot. Okay? There you go. Oh, sorry.
Gesundheit.
Thank you.
For most part, I thought that the action was fun to watch.
Yeah.
I did not like the final scene where he's fighting the computer. It didn't make any sense. The computer like wrapped him in bubble wrap, and he was like, they're like, let's see how long he can survive without air. And I'm like, morons. He went like 4 years in his ship from Krypton. It wasn't producing air. My mans can breathe in space.
But that was what was frustrating me. Thank you for reminding me. That was what was frustrating about the action is his powers were so sticking and inconsistent.
They have been the whole series.
They have been, but I've noticed it much more in this movie than in the other ones because, you know, in the same scene, in one scene like Ben talked about earlier, he's trying to stop this fire in a chemical plant, and it's almost like he doesn't have ice breath because he's not blowing him out. And then he flies, and then like in that same scene, he flies over, freezes a lake and drops off. So he does have ice breath, but he didn't at that moment. And then also the scene where he has bubble wrap wrapped around him, he can't breathe. And then in like a couple of scenes, he flies off into space with no oxygen. He smiles for the camera. You know, like there's just no.
He's immune to most rockets except for that one.
Except for the one that blows him up and knocks him out. Yeah, so I'm like, what? And he's kicking rockets at that part too. Like rockets are launching him, he's kicking them, and he's got no effect. But then one hits him and he gets knocked down. And like, where's the line? And now I get Superman is a hard character to make interesting if you give him unlimited power, which he pretty much has because of the nature of his character.
Especially in the second one.
Especially in the second one. But my thought about that is like, you gotta, if you're gonna limit him, be consistent with the limitations you give him.
Yeah.
And they weren't. And so that really bothered me in a lot of the action sequences.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. Really, really inconsistent throughout the whole series. Last series, he could kiss people's memory away. Last series or last movie, he could He was immediately shooting lasers and blowing ice breath and multiplying himself and throwing his chest piece.
Yeah.
None of that. I mean, some of that showed up in this movie, but like not a significant portion of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just in weird times he was less powerful, and it's always been a little bit inconsistent. But I agree with you. It was specifically inconsistent in this movie. I gave this one a 2.5.
I gave it a 2.0 out of 5. It just, there was enough that bothered me about the inconsistency of it, plus which the ending battle between the computers wasn't interesting to me to watch. But I did really enjoy the good Superman versus bad Superman in the junkyard fight, and some of the stuff where he was just saving people was pretty good. So 2 out of 5, not great, but watchable, decent enough. Moving on then into the acting and characters of Superman 3. What I will say for me is that this actually was the strongest point of the movie, and I also enjoyed this probably more, the acting and more in this one than I did in the first two. Christopher Reeves is still fantastic. I even liked him as Jerk Superman. I didn't like the fact that he was Jerk Superman, but he did a good job as Jerk Superman. I like him. The other thing I want to say is Lana Lang was played by Annette O'Toole. I liked her so much better than I liked Lois Lane. Yeah. And I know that's probably going to get me a lot of hate from some people who are big Superman fans, but Margot Kidder drove me crazy in Superman 2. And then Annette O'Toole as Lana Lang was so much more likable. She had all the same qualities that people like about Lois with her like determination. She was really busy all the time. But then it got rid of the selfish aspect of Lois and she became more heartfelt.
Yeah.
She enjoyed helping people. She tried to kick Superman out the door to go save people that she was in danger. Like, she was so much less selfish. And she loved Clark, not Superman. And that's what I really liked about her.
Yeah, I 100% agree. As far as all of the characters go, I think this was the best movie that we had so far. The acting was just better.
Yeah.
Just in general. I will say as far as characters go, the villains, and by that I mean the Webster family, were obnoxious to me because Mr. Webster was more or less just Lex Luthor, but not as interesting. And then Mrs. Webster, who's not his wife, but rather his sister, is just a little bit like General Zod's girlfriend, but somehow even less interesting. Like, there's really just not much that goes into it. And I thought that it was just kind of lazy. But again, Christopher Reeve pulled the whole thing together. Like you said, I really liked Lana Lang. I thought she was good. I liked her motivation. I liked her acting. And I also liked that they brought her back for Smallville. Not as Lana Lang, because that would have been dated. Yeah, really weird. But I thought that she did a good job. And even the extras in this movie were more enjoyable to watch than the extras in the last one.
By quite a bit.
Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, by quite a bit. And also, we already talked about Gus's character a lot, but I really liked Richard Pryor in this movie, which was interesting because he almost like took the limelight from Superman. It seemed like he was almost more of the main character for more of the movie than Superman was, especially in the first half.
I can definitely see that.
So he had to pull his weight a little bit. And granted, he was mostly just funny. That was like what they wanted him to be.
Yeah, I will say he didn't seem like a real person.
No,
he didn't. If you had ran into that person on the street, you would have been like, what's going on with this guy? He just didn't seem right. He didn't seem like a person.
No.
So I don't know if like that's an acting thing or a writing thing. I will say he was enjoyable to watch.
He was enjoyable to watch. He was almost just, he was a comedian in a movie, is what I felt like.
Yeah.
But he was fun to watch, and the fact that they did make him one of the main characters worked for me just because he was enjoyable to watch. But yeah, so I actually, all things considered, I agree Webster was just Lex Luthor, but not as smart, not as interesting. So that drags it down a little bit for me. But I gave the acting characters a 3.5 out of 5. This was the highest I've ever seen a performance on acting characters in these Superman movies.
Yeah. I gave it a 2.5. Acting, I probably would have given a 3.5, but characters, and since that's part of it, I didn't think that the characters were very well drawn out. I didn't feel like we understood any of their motivations all that well. With the exception of Gus, I understood his motivation, and I understood Christopher Reeve's motivation, and that's the two main characters. So I gave it a 2.5.
Yeah.
Say thank you.
Cinematics of this movie were probably the worst out of what we've had so far. As far as good things to say about it, I will say that there was a couple pretty long shots in the beginning. Throughout this series, you're going to notice that that's a big deal for me. I don't like quick cuts. I have a feeling that that's going to drop some of the scores in the later movies that we watch. But I will say there was another thing that I kind of liked, and that's when Superman was Dark Superman, they physically made the tone darker. His suit was a little darker, the lighting was a little darker. He started to appear older. He had gray hair. He didn't have gray hair in the beginning of the movie.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, they changed appearances to match the tone, and I liked that. It's very reminiscent of its age, and it's something that we still see a little bit in today's movies, but not as much as I'd like. Camera angles were all fine. I mean, just in general, the set design was a lot better. Once again, we do not have Lego Krypton, and that's
That was
a win.
helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, taking out Lego Krypton was a good move. But I will also say, in a lot of this movie, the cinematics were just a little lazy. It seemed like they didn't want to make it any... I mean, maybe they didn't want to make it groundbreaking. Maybe they just wanted to make a movie. But in one way or another, I had to give the cinematics a 2.
I didn't... Something that really drove me crazy was in the very beginning of the movie. The opening credits were floating horizontally across the ground rather than coming up across the screen. And when you do that, you blur what's happening. And the thing is like, it's not just that they're showing words on screen. Something was actually happening in the movie, and it made everything blurry, and it was very distracting. Now, granted, nothing important was happening in the movie. The opening scene in this movie is, like, weird. Like, you just have a bunch of catastrophes happening, and there's no point to any of it. Like, it doesn't go anywhere. But I just the fact that they had that happening just drove me absolutely nuts. And just kind of along with what Ben was saying, I didn't particularly enjoy a lot of how it looked. To me, actually, his flying in this movie looked worse than it did in the other ones. And maybe it's just because I wasn't paying as much attention in the other ones. But to me, his flying, like, there was one point he was flying downwards and he was, like, crooked. Like, this almost like the line flipped that they were lowering him on. So he was, like, flying like this.
Yeah.
And then he landed, and I'm like, what is happening? So I gave it a 1.5 out of 5. Cinematically, I did not enjoy this movie really at all. But I did like the kind of the darker suit. That they did, and kind of like what Ben was saying, but that's pretty much it for Cinemax. It didn't work for me.
Can't I hate you? I've always hated you. You know why?
No.
Because you're nice.
Not really.
And nice guys finish.
Overall, this movie was not super entertaining. I will say, I really liked the first half of this movie. The first half of this movie, I was like, man, I'm going to like this. Because it was a little all over the place, and there was no plot yet, but it was entertaining. Superman was ripping the tops off of cars to keep people from drowning. He was dropping lakes on buildings. He was going to dances, and he was blowing bowling balls at 200 miles an hour. And I was having a good time. It wasn't, there was nothing like of consequence happening, but it was fun. And then right when the plot picks up, it gets really terrible to watch. Which, if you'll recall, is about the opposite of Superman the movie.
Yeah.
So my thought process is, if you're going to sit down and watch a Superman movie, turn on the first half of this movie. And then right when he's about to get the red kryptonite, turn it off. And then go over to the second half.
Watch the first second half of Superman the movie.
And if you just replace Webster's character with Lex Luthor, it's a good movie.
It's true, yeah. I was entertained for the most part. Like Ben said, here's the thing, I wasn't bored. There wasn't a moment that I was like, turn this movie off. This is like boring to watch. I'm done with this. But I didn't like it. Like, there was nothing about it that really made me want to watch it again, you know? And so I would say that for me, entertainment wise, I'd give it a 2 out of 5, just because I was entertained, but I wasn't entertained in a good way, you know?
Yeah, I also gave it a 2 out of 5. There was a point in the movie when I was like, turn it off, and that was about an hour and a half in. I was so tired of the movie at that point. I was willing to watch literally anything else. If you had put on Batman 1966, I probably would have been okay with that.
Okay with that.
But no, but again, it wasn't terrible to watch, and the first half made up for the second half, in my opinion. I had a good enough time watching the first half just for laughs than.
Yeah,
That the second half didn't bother me. That said, rewatchability not very much, so I gave it a 2.
yeah. No, I probably will not watch this again, and if I do, it'll be several years later.
But you know what we do get to watch pretty soon?
Hmm.
Superman: A Quest for Peace.
Oh, yeah.
Oh baby, am I excited!
We've never seen that one. The first I've ever made in the Superman franchise is 2 up until this point. Now I've seen 3. But yeah, no, I've heard some interesting things about Quest for Peace. I've never seen it. We'll see how it goes.
Oh yeah, so tune in next week when we watch
Superman 4: Quest for Peace.
My anticipation is that's going to be a longer video because we're going to have more to talk about.
We'll find out. Yeah,
yes,
we'll find out. Overall, though, so for Superman 3, our combined scores, we both gave it a 2.0. So our average is a 2.0.
Yeah, this is the most we've ever agreed.
Yeah, we totally agreed on this one and the last one for that matter. So Superman, apparently we're pretty equally yoked in when it comes to Superman movies.
So far, Batman not the same. But
but we'll find out when we get to the
there's better
ones.
Batman movies.
Yeah,
so
we'll get a better idea.
Yeah.
The Batman the movie is just weird because it's just not like a normal Batman movie.
No, definitely.
But we'll find out. But anyway, yeah, so thank you for watching our review of Superman 3, and we will see you next time with Superman 4: A Quest for Peace.